This man has never knocked nobody out cold. He's a bully. He's slow. He has no skill, no footwork. He's awkward. And I have given him a name. Because he fights. When he's fighting, if you ever watch him in the ring, he drags like that after his opponent. and how's the mummy gonna catch me?
And all I had to do was to go out and beat for a man who had no skill, no class. Seriously, the man had no skill. I don't know why the world is so foolish to believe in him and think that I wasn't going to win.
Well, when you say you're ready to go to war right now...
I see that bear on the street, I beat him before the fight.
You'd actually take him on before the fight?
Beat him like I'm his daddy. Basketball players out there, football players, they want to beat so bad, they want to get everybody. I'll go to Mars, I don't care.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
Hello, everyone. Michael Jordan fans are the best, and welcome back to Lights Out Debates, where we don't have a catchphrase, but today we'll be debating Tim Duncan versus Kobe Bryant. Who's greater? Travis, how are you today?
I'm excellent. I'm ready for this. Let's do it.
Awesome. So last time I went first. So this time you'll go first. Do you have anything you want to say before we start this debate about who you're defending with Tim Duncan?
Just that I love these kind of debates because, like the last one we did, Bird and Magic, the best debates are always the ones where there's no absolute clear-cut way you could say, hey, these guys are super, so much better. Obviously you're debating it, but in real time, they're when their careers interlap, they face each other directly. Their resumes are similar. Those are the best ones because there's nuance to debate. You have to make that case, and that's the most fun rather than if it's just some lopsided argument.
Yeah, for me, for my argument, there's some backdrop. I don't know if you have it on speaker, but anyway, for me, I think I'm going to take the edge with this just because when they played against each other, Kobe Bryant had the edge in the playoffs. He's a better scorer and he's more iconic. I think that's what's going to put me over the edge for this.
And for me, I'm just saying that I think Tim Duncan is clears Kobe as far as resume goes and team impact and just consistent greatness. So I think I'm going to be leaning on that today.
All right. Without further ado, let's get it on.
All right.
3, 2, 1.
All right, guys. So like I said in the beginning here, the intro, the best debates are always the ones that have they're very close. There's no clear cut winner as far as on paper, things like that. But I think Duncan is definitely the greater player than Kobe Bryant. I think that's spelled out in the entirety of his career, and honestly, I don't think it's even close especially as far as like a team impact goes. So just from the beginning here, like when you take a look at their resumes, Duncan does have more regular season MVPs, more Finals MVPs. They have the same 15 All-NBA selections. Duncan does have the most all-defensive selections in NBA history. Okay. Also, when you go in, and these are just really the numbers here. They're not even talking about how the team impact spelled out yet. But Tim Duncan is actually top 5 in blocks, 6th all time in rebounds, 14th in points, and that's just the regular season. And the postseason is where Tim Duncan excelled, and it gets better where he's actually 1st all time in double doubles, 1st in blocks, 3rd all time in rebounds, and 6th in points. Kobe's actually only top 10 in points in the regular season and playoffs here. So Duncan actually is only one of 4 players to be at least top 5 in multiple major stat categories in the playoffs. The other is Michael Jordan, Kareem, John Stockton. So right away we see that Tim Duncan is in rarefied air there when you're talking statistically and with the resume. It screams top 5 when you cross all these, or when you check all these boxes. And especially when you play with, obviously we use the word longevity, but longevity without consistency and without consistent domination, it's really you just playing for a paycheck. You're not really contributing anything. You're just there. You can see your stats diminish until they're basically non-existent. You become kind of like a Robert Parrish or like a Vince Carter type player where you're ineffective and you're really just playing to have something to do. And with Tim Duncan, that was not the case there. And as we go on here, just a little bit about his impact here. We're going to talk about how he really impacted his team from get-go, and just a little bit about that here. That's how we define greatness, right? Is by team impact and how you lead them from the front. And by that, we know that Tim Duncan is actually almost unmatched. And just like a little preview of before I really get into the impact side of things, and when we talk about what it looks like, then the Spurs before he joined were, especially we look at 2 years before they joined and then 2 to 3 years after they left to really get a glimpse of.
3, 2,
We'll talk about that next.
1.
All right. First off, I just want to address some of the things that you said. Most of the stats that Tim Duncan had for being top 10 in the playoffs are all traditional big man stats, to be in the rebounds, the blocks, etc. And even with the points, outside of just a few fantastic players within the top 10, even for scoring across all time, big men generally have more total scoring. Not particularly with the scoring titles, but with that. Also, you're just mentioning stats in respect to, again, just accumulation of stats. They're all totals. So, and then you're talking about his consistency throughout his entire career. When you go and you look at his career, he did drop off significantly at the end of his career. He wasn't even making all-star appearances during that time. And Kobe did lead from the front. He was known for his tenacity, his will to win, and even trying to influence Shaq to do better. So if that's not leading from the front, I'm not sure what that is. And then I just want to say that Kobe Bryant is greater than Tim Duncan, which is defined, or greatness is defined as the ability, quality, eminence, considered above the normal or average. In all of these aspects, Kobe Bryant has more convictive evidence than Tim Duncan as a greater basketball player due to his dominance over his basketball career, which means to be commanding, controlling, or prevailing over all others. Excuse me. Dominance is the easiest way to distinguish all-time greats against each other due to the variations of roles in this case, because they played each other for the majority of their career. To start, Kobe Bryant had greater ability than Tim Duncan. Ability meaning the talent, skill, or proficiency in a particular area. And this is going to be centered around his individual play and statistical output. Both played vastly different positions. So I'm going to focus on scoring because I already mentioned Kobe's going to out-assist Duncan. He's going to out-steal him. He's just not going to out-rebound him or block him. And I'm going to talk about it because they complement the roles that they played the stats. So for career-high single-game records, Kobe Bryant outperformed Tim Duncan with points, 81-53, 81 being the second highest ever scored in an NBA game. Kobe Bryant's top 20 scoring games were all over 50 points. Tim Duncan only scored 50 points once in his career. Kobe's the fourth leading scorer in league history, while Duncan is 17th. Bryant was the first player to have 30,000 points and 6,000 assists. He's one of 4 players to have 25,000 points, 6,000 rebounds, and 6,000 assists. Kobe scored 50 points 24 times in his career, the third most in league history. He averaged 40 points per month 4 times in his career. Duncan never did that. And then he had significantly more compounded achievements than Duncan, Kobe Bryant. And I'll get into that in the further rounds.
All right. So just to touch on one thing he said there, he said that most of those accumulations were due to big man having an easier or big man stats or whatnot. But interesting, two of the 4 players that actually led were top 5 in multiple major playoff brackets were guards. You have Michael Jordan and John Stockton. So, I mean, Kobe, again, just because Kobe was there, he just wasn't consistent enough throughout his career. And that's testified to the fact that he wasn't even good enough to start his first 4 years. And also, yeah, he was injured like his last 3, but, he was still signing huge contracts and, making appearances there. So he just wasn't consistent enough statistically throughout his career to be impactful. And the Lakers were still winning 50-plus games without Kobe starting. In fact, he only started, I believe, 7 games total until 2000. Right around there or something. And so that shows that the Lakers were still put together. They weren't struggling, and he came into a great organization. But anyway, talk about Tim Duncan's impact, because it's far greater than Kobe Bryant's in every way you want to talk about. And the impact is defined by how well your team does with you as the addition. So without Tim Duncan, the year before he joined the team, the Spurs were dead last in defensive rating, dead last, 29th. The next year with Duncan, they were second. And incredibly, they stayed that way every single year of Duncan's career, where they would finish top 10 or better, outside of 2011, where they were 11th. And this is basically just with Tim Duncan, and the only really consistent pieces being, besides Duncan, were Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, none of whom even are ever sniffed at defensive team selection. You really only see the likes of that. Since of that kind of defensive impact and winning since Bill Russell. And so Tim Duncan, again, was leading from the front. He was leading the Spurs every year in like scoring, rebounds, blocks. And hey, in 2003, he led them in points, rebounds, assists, and blocks, and becoming, I guess, one of only 7 players ever to lead their team in 5 major, or in at least 4 of the 5 major statistical categories throughout an entire championship run. And so, I mean, you're talking about Spurs were title contenders every single year. And so when you look at the impact there, and when Tim Duncan left, 2 years later, again, they were middling offensive and defensive teams after that. And so the next round, what I'll do is kind of close it up to really emphasize how these impacts are one-sided, and how Kobe Bryant and Tim Duncan is really just a comparison alone, and Tim Duncan clears him when he goes to the real defensive impacts here.
2, 1.
So you're talking these defensive impacts, and you're talking these numbers with advanced analytics. I'm imagining what you're going to say next round. I don't know, maybe not. But some of the things that you said, that he wasn't even good enough in the first 4 years of his career. He was picked up as a teenager. But in contrast to Tim Duncan, he was consistent, making all-star games throughout the majority of his career. Tim Duncan, over the last 7 years of his career, often wasn't even making all-NBA or all-defensive teams, but on or off. And Kobe was generally making both of those teams once he picked it up. And we're not talking who's better, we're talking who's greater. So, even if he had these better regular season records, what did it come down to? He might have been a contender, but he wasn't closing the deal. He didn't even make it to as many finals appearances as Kobe. And I'm going to describe this. Kobe was a better quality player than Tim Duncan. Quality is the degree which an object or entity satisfies a specified set of attributes or requirements. How this is largely identified is through the success someone helps bring to their team. So I talked about his individual numbers. I'm going to describe his quality contributions and how it gave them more playoff success in contrast to Tim Duncan. Especially since they played each other and were in the same conference, these numbers are more relevant. Both players won 5 championships. Kobe had 1 more appearance than Duncan with 7 to 6, as I had said. His finals appearances occurred from 2000 to 2010, meaning that an 11-year stretch that accounted for nearly 2/3 of all finals appearances during that time. Tim Duncan's team got switched up. Not that Kobe's didn't, but that took about a 15-year period for Tim Duncan to win his second or his first and his last NBA championship. It really wasn't as potent or as great of a story. To include in that, Tim Duncan never went back-to-back in the championships. Kobe Bryant had won a three-peat and a back-to-back. Both are in rarefied air across the history of the NBA, which is great. Kobe defeated Tim Duncan 18-12 in the playoffs, which is a significant difference in the margins. And in addition, every year Kobe Bryant won an NBA championship. He was all NBA and an all defensive selection, something that Tim Duncan can't claim. Also, Kobe twice won the All-Star Game MVP when winning a championship, again, something Tim Duncan can't claim. And that's just showing his eminence, his quality, and his ability. And then additionally, Kobe Bryant won All-Star MVP, Finals MVP, the championship, first team All-NBA, and first team All-Defense, all in the same season, 2009. Again, Duncan never had that variety in his accolades that to go across all the characteristics of greatness as it's defined, like Kobe did. He simply had more quality contributions to his team's success.
All right, guys, I just really want to sum this up. We've already discussed how Tim Duncan really clears Kobe Bryant statistically all time. He has the better resume as far as accolades and achievements goes. That's really not the issue here. I just want to sum up their difference in team impact, which is what we're really talking about here. And that's how you define greatness. It always has been, not with all-star appearances as a teenager when you're not even starting. You're just wildly popular. That's why you get selected. I mean, that was kind of Kobe's early claim to fame because he sure wasn't winning Finals MVPs his first 3 years. In fact, he's the only top 10 player in league history that never won a Finals MVP during his first 3 title runs. Okay, not the case with anyone else that we want to talk about. But Tim was the man from the beginning, just like Larry Bird was in our earlier debate. Tim from the drop was the best. Kobe, again, wasn't even starting until year 4. They were still winning 60-plus games. And then what happened after their actual best player, Shaquille O'Neal, who was again, Kobe wasn't even the best player on his own team for basically the entire first half of his career. What happened when Shaq left? So the offensive and defensive rating went from top 10 to dead last in defensive rating when Shaq left the year after, and they went from 3rd in points per game to 12th. Okay, where's the impact from Kobe Bryant? Again, and that really didn't even change as Kobe is the main man. His stats went up, his scoring went up, his efficiency did go down, but those things didn't really change until you actually brought in the more efficient defensive anchors like Pau Gasol. You had to develop Andrew Bynum. You just signed a Ron Artest. The Lakers went from a 50-plus win team in the finals in 2004 to a 34-48 bottom feeder the minute Shaq left. Meanwhile, the Spurs never won less than 50 games in Duncan's entire career, excluding the lockout-shortened 99 season. And then, obviously, they went back to being a regular, normal middle-of-the-pack team the second he left. Okay, obviously, Tim Duncan wasn't making all-star teams or defensive or all NBA selections the last few years of career, but he was still one of their best scorers. He was still arguably their best rebounder, their best defender, and he was still showing that impact night in and night out. And again, that's something that Kobe Bryant never did. Especially if you look at their on-off things like that, like their team success with or without them on the floor. Tim Duncan stands alone as far as just the overall measurable team impact. We can't deny that enough or emphasize that enough. Tim Duncan was leading from the front. He was clearly the more impactful player in terms of stats, accolades, achievements, winning. As far as having to be the main man, he didn't have another fellow top 5 player to lead in scoring, to lead in rebounds, to be the defensive anchor. Kobe Bryant did for basically the first half of his career. Tim Duncan is more impactful, and it's not even close, really.
All right, so eminence is in the dictionary definition under greatness. That's what it means, not impact like what you're saying. Kobe was the closer when playing with Shaq. His stats were up during the time that he was winning those championships. And he was the closer also during those times. So it just doesn't really, I'm not entirely sure what you're meaning, as if because Shaq left, who was also a significant part of that team, that it went under. That's just what happens. And Tim Duncan just was on a team that they made greater moves. The team. was greater. Duncan also didn't win Finals MVP after 2005. Tony Parker and Kawhi Leonard did. So I don't understand. And Kobe was impactful. He has great impact stats. I just didn't list them. He didn't win accolades or in respect to Tim Duncan having better accolades and achievements. I'm going to explain some of the things that are not as great as Kobe's. So I'm going to explain eminence for you. Eminence is meaning of a position or prominence of superiority. It applies to Kobe Bryant with his awards, his reputation, and contributions to the game of basketball. They're referenced largely to include intangibles and prominence in the NBA at the time they played. So, firstly, Kobe was awarded 11 first-team All-NBAs versus Duncan's 10 first-team All-NBAs. To me, that's more consistent on top, which you've been driving home this entire time. That shows better consistency, that he was on top of the league more than Duncan in respect to All-NBAs. Also, for Kobe's All-Defense, he also won 9-time first-team All-NBA defense, tied for the most ever. And then Duncan only won 8, which is still fantastic, but that's still not as consistent and as impactful in these intangible awards as you were describing. And to make this clear, the first-team All-NBA award and All-Defense represents the considered best players by position for the season versus the other All-NBAs, which are consolation prizes in respect to that designation. Kobe Bryant was an All-Star 18 times to Duncan's 15. He's also the second in all-time All-Star appearances and went to a record 18 straight as a starter. So All-Stars showcase both popularity and skill set across the league, which is significant because that also shows the consistent of the eminence and the ability of a player, as by the definition of greatness. And then additionally, Kobe Bryant won the All-Star Game MVP a total of 4 times, which is a record, having the award named after him. He shared it with Bob Pettit, not the award, but the record. Tim Duncan won it once, and he was a co-MVP with Shaq in 2000. And he doesn't even have an award named after him. Again, not as eminent.
3, 2, 1.
I cannot hear you, sir.
No, I went down the rabbit hole. I wasn't looking at the clock. I just started getting into the argument.
It happens. The 3-minute rounds.
Yeah. But anyway, I thought that was a fantastic debate. I think that Kobe Bryant, when you don't get into the analytics and you just look at the analytics, you don't look at the analytics face up and just put a ton of value on it. I think Kobe Bryant does have a strong case over Duncan to be a greater player with the ability, quality, and eminence as defined by the dictionary of what that word greatness means. And again, they're both fantastic players. Like you mentioned, it's a hard debate to have. I think that Kobe Bryant as an individual, again, not with the team, they both shuffled everything up. Losing Shaq was a terrible thing for the Lakers, as you were discussing. They didn't get much for him in return in respect to how he contributed to the team. But what do you have to say about this debate?
Like I said, I think obviously I'm a huge Kobe defender, and I've been doing that to a lot of degrees. The last week I've been for, but I think that Tim Duncan's a top 5 player for a reason, and Kobe isn't. It's like when you actually look at impact is more than just winning All-Star Game MVPs. That doesn't mean really anything. That's a popularity game. It doesn't impact the standings at all. Guys that aren't even trying. What matters is like how you perform on the court, how your team does as a direct result of you. And Tim Duncan, I think, aside from Bill Russell, is really, I think, the second most impactful player in NBA history, especially when you look at, like I said earlier, when what happened when he joined that team. When you look at all their turnover through the years, really he was one of the only consistent pieces there, especially defensively. He was consistently always their best player. Kobe Bryant wasn't. And when you look at all the way up until his effect when he retired, the Spurs were almost immediately worse across the board. And I mean, with Kobe, yeah, he was impactful, he was great, but like you said, he had there was so much, nuance with Kobe's career. I don't think it's hard for me to paint a picture of him being more impactful, especially when you look at how they had to rebuild when Shaq, their actual best player, left. They had to bring in other guys, which is fair, but it's tough for me to say that Kobe Bryant was the more impactful or better player. Maybe more flashy, but that's it.
Yeah, the argument was greater, not better, because I think that Tim Duncan was a better player than Kobe Bryant, but I don't think he's greater than Kobe.
Much
And
better.
no, not at all. Because there's things that are just missing out of Duncan's personality in respect to, again, the eminence, using words and their meaning. Duncan, although with the awards, he meets up to a lot of those things. The impact otherwise, and you talked about the Spurs got significantly worse. That's not true. They were still a fantastic team. I think they were still winning 50+ games a year. They had LaMarcus Aldridge, they had Kawhi Leonard, and then they kept the team going when he left. So again, that speaks a lot to the franchise, which is fantastic. Tim Duncan was a big part of that franchise, but when he left, they were set up for success. So there was not a significant drop off from when Tim Duncan left that team. And I think that with Shaq, they did. I think that change of when Shaq left, I think his impact on the team was noticeably missing because he was just such a dominant force in the league. And Duncan moving onto the team, he had immediate impact, like you had said, versus Kobe, who did not have immediate impact. But once Kobe got into his rhythm, which was in that first three-peat, he still had fantastic stats. Since you were talking about stats, he still had fantastic stats during that time, and he was winning All NBA, All Defense, and then he started getting into the first team for both a couple of years after that. So Duncan really started to fall off in the middle to the end of his career for winning those awards as much, at least at the highest level of the first teams. And I mean, again, fantastic player, but it really was hit or miss for Duncan at the end of his career for winning those awards as well.
I mean, sure, but I mean, Kobe Bryant basically had none of those for 7 years of his career, right? Especially the last three. Actually, I think the last 4 or 5 where he didn't win. I don't think he even sniffed an All-NBA or All Defensive Team for the last 4 years of his career. But Tim Duncan, I mean, it's a great argument regardless. I mean, like I said, the resume is close. I think Duncan clears him because he has more MVPs. He has more Finals MVPs. He does have more All Defensive selections. They have the same All NBA. But I mean, at the end of the day, I just think Duncan, he was more consistent. You have the most consistent guys like postseason, right? Jordan, Kareem, John Stockton, himself. Those are the guys who were consistency. Is one thing that you can measure, obviously by totals, but a lot of guys who played as long as Kobe and Duncan don't have near those totals because they weren't as consistent, especially dominant. But I think it's a great debate. They're two guys who played against each other and they have similar awards, obviously similar success. They both have the 5 rings, but it's really tough. And I like both of our arguments. I've always just thought that Tim Duncan was the greater player. I mean, obviously, it's tough for me to say better because, they play different positions and, they're good at different things. But to me, I have Tim Duncan top 5 all time because of his measurable impact, especially defensively, like what you saw that team do with him. And, obviously they haven't sniffed the title since 2014, but, it's, we'll leave it to the watchers to decide, I guess.
Yeah, I think I've won I think I won the last 2 according to the polls of the 5 people voting on each of them. Yeah, and I mean, I guess to your point, to make an argument with numbers with these advanced stats, it does favor Duncan. If you look at it for using that, you can just read them and say that he was better or better. I think that's more of the better argument, the analytics. You can, It's
Yeah, I know he
hard.
blows Kobe away analytically. I wasn't even going to reuse that because Kobe was actually trash analytically.
Yeah, I mean, I think trash is an overstatement, but in respect to it is not as good as
Yeah,
Duncan.
Kobe's the only top 10 player ever to have a negative defensive box plus minus for his career.
Yeah, I saw that. The the aspect of it is for me is that I don't think that particularly makes like those analytics. I think is more of a better argument versus a greater argument, because the greater is like showcasing what you can do through your ability, what you had with your quality, but how were you able to win the championships is per se like the stated standard and the definition, and then the eminence is how people look at you. So that's why I think Kobe's greater. But Duncan, I think Duncan's better. And I was never even a fan of Kobe really, and I've started appreciating him more lately. I wouldn't even acknowledge his greatness because I was a Duncan fan and there was that rivalry. So I was not a fan. I was not a fan of Kobe growing up.
I mean, if we're talking popular, yeah, it's not close. Kobe is probably one of maybe the second or third most popular player ever, right? Like, I don't think that's even a debate. Like, his style of game lent to it. He was because he modeled his game after Michael Jordan, obviously, definitely the most popular player ever, and I mean that really went a long way towards cementing his legacy. How he scored, his volume, his style, his pizzazz. Yeah, that's not even a debate. Like, he was 1,000%, I think, arguably the face of the league for a long time, to some degree. And yeah, I mean, Duncan just really went about his business. He wasn't interested in the lights and the fame or whatever. He just did his job. So yeah, I think in that respect, Kobe was much more popular than Duncan, and in that way greater. But as far as just being a player, who who gets results, I don't think that he was greater than Duncan at all. Especially when you consider where the majority of his rings came from.
Yeah, I mean, I think both were significant contributors for both of their rings. I think Duncan more so on the front end and Kobe on the back end. And not that neither of them didn't have major contributions, because they both did. And if anything, I would say that Duncan, at least statistically speaking, had less contributions at the end at the 2014 one in comparison to, like, you could say, Kobe's worst finals statistically in 2000. So, I mean, that's just an argument. I don't really think it matters that much, because they both were major contributors for both of them. So,
Yep, two fantastic players. And yeah, I've been doing so much Kobe defending this last week just because he's been being slandered all over the place by all these idiots.
yeah.
I'm doing so tomorrow too.
Are you doing another debate tomorrow, or?
Not another debate. I'm just my little segment on the show is I get to do whatever I want, and so I usually take a take from somebody and I debunk it, and I'm doing this stupid take by Gilbert Arenas, who said that basically no one cares about rings if you were the set or if you were the sidekick. Basically,
Yeah.
it's so stupid, and so Gil's a huge clown, so I'm gonna go ahead and take care of him. Well, which I had before.
Yeah, what drove me crazy was T-Mac saying he would have won those championships with Shaq.
So
I mean,
stupid. I was gonna do that one, but then I changed it when I saw Gil's. But T Mac's crazy too.
well, yeah, I mean I just don't understand people. They pretend like there's not this whole dynamic of being on the team and playing and figuring it all out. The intangibles of how to play together. It's kind of like my arguments when people try to hate on the 50s and the 60s. They were there, they did it, period. Just because you think that you could put LeBron James in 1950 and that he would, whatever, score 300 points, That doesn't mean that's what's going to happen because you think so. Even if you have reason for it, it doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen as a definite. It's all conjecture.
Yeah.
And with T-Mac, I mean, he didn't even win a playoff series, to my understanding, ever in his
Nope.
career. So,
No,
and then
I mean, there's no telling like what he. I mean, Kobe was a huge like playoff riser, like especially with Shaq. Like when the times got tough, he was clutch. He was oftentimes their best player during the Western Conference playoffs, which were definitely the hardest ones compared to the final. There's no telling what T Mac would have done. Like, would T Mac have risen to that kind of occasion with that kind of pressure against like the Goat Kings or the all time Blazers or Tim Duncan Spurs? Like, would he have put in that same production that Kobe Bryant did? I mean, there's no. I mean, I think he would have folded. He was a perennial playoff choker, and I mean, sure, he was talented. He was great. I mean, he was. I think he was on par with Kobe offensively. I mean, if you're talking regular season during those years, but he wasn't nearly the defender either that Kobe was, and it just. I don't think that he would have. I mean, would they have maybe wanted? I mean, it's you can debate it, but I think that Kobe was just more consistent, and I think he was more clutch than T Mac, and that matters, especially when you're going through the wars that they did from in those years.
yeah, and the one thing that kills me too is the um like they use those years because Shaq did win the championship. But what about the years that Shaq did not win the championship before then and after then when he was still a fantastic player? That's, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
people don't consider that kind of thing. They just say, well, Shaq was on the team. And that's what he said. I think that's more or less verbatim was on what he said is that Shaq was on the team. Anyone could have won being on Shaq's team. Well, what about when he was playing with Penny Hardaway in Orlando? What about the couple years coming up to that when they had Eddie Jones and, they still had an all-star cast. I think they had 4 all-stars one year before they won the championship. I think in, what was it, 98?
yeah, they had like Van Exel, Shaq, Eddie Jones, Kobe was an all-star. Yeah, no, they were. Shaq came into the league loaded with help, and he was fantastic. But yeah, they didn't get over the hump till they had that team. They had the Robert Horry, Phil Jackson, Rick Fox. Kobe was starting to become prime, and yeah, it matters. But it's not just you add Shaq and you win. It's just you takes an entire cohesive team, and it just yeah, just to just say, hey, I would have been there and I would have won too is stupid. If you don't know how you would have reacted in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even when he went to the Heat, I know he got injured. They did win the one year, but that team was stacked too. With they had Gary Payton,
Alonzo Mourning.
Alonzo Mourning. It was ridiculously stacked team, and they had Pat Riley, another great coach. So all-time great coach. So both of them.
Shaq didn't win Finals MVP there either.
Yeah. But it's just crazy when people just start saying that stuff. It's such a lazy analysis. It's like, well, if you pick this one factor out and put me in it or put this player in it, then that means it's going to be successful. It's not just a 1-to-1 ratio. There's all these intangibles associated with it that people just don't.
Yeah, I just think so many players are butthurt, like especially the guys who didn't win anything, and like they because they're on these talk shows now or whatever, or they're on these platforms, and they keep hearing about all the people who did win rings and how LeBron said that stupid thing about ring culture, and I can't wait for Snap's video on that today. But that means like someone like McGrady who never even sniffed a ring. I think it's easy for him to be like, oh, I could have done, and you get people coming out of the woodwork with that. And, it's just disingenuous because it's like you play the what if game, and it's easy to say that, but Kobe went out there and did it, went out there and delivered all these times. I mean, I'm sorry, T-Mac, was your prime like 4 years? Just like, come on, dude. Ridiculous.
Yeah, what he get like 4 All NBAs his entire career or something
I don't
like
know.
that.
He was like he was from like 2000 to like 2005 or 6 or whatever. He was good, and then he went to Houston and he was still okay, but he was not nearly the player. But that's his. I mean, maybe just dedication. Like he fell off. Like the consistent guys who do it year in and year out. Those are the goats, and like Kobe's one of them. And even just think about like I mean, obviously the knock on Kobe is he was unpolished when he came to the league, but he quickly turned that around, and I think he should have retired in 2014, but after he got injured. But his prime was up there with the best of them. So especially when you look at accolades.
How do you think the team would have been in Orlando if Tim Duncan went there with Tracy McGrady and Grant Hill when he was thinking about going there in I think 2003?
Oh, if he went there in 2003, I think they win multiple titles. I mean, especially because just prime Tim Duncan was so cerebral defensively, and I mean he could adapt if you want to outscore him and you're Tracy McGrady, sure, Tim Duncan would allow you to do that probably. I mean he did what was needed. He was a top 3 defender all time, and like when you put someone like that on the team and you have a defensive minded coach like Popovich was, then I mean his impact from that into the floor is so incredibly underrated, I think, because that's the reason the Celtics were winning championships. Basically, they had great players, but Bill Russell was just so controlling on that side of the floor, kind of like Tim Duncan was. It didn't matter who was on the roster, didn't matter the turnover. You could pencil him in for a top 5 defense every single year, and that was largely because of one man. And I think he would have done the same in Orlando. Maybe not to the same degree, but I think they definitely would have been contending for titles for sure.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting to see how that would have worked out. I mean, I'm glad he stayed. I don't know. I think Tim Duncan's career would not have nearly been as impressive if he had went there. I don't think if they win a championship, I think it was possible with the talent, but I don't know how long it lasts, especially with both of those guys being injury prone, or how it did end up happening with T-Mac and Grant Hill being injury prone. But it still would have been interesting to see. I looked this up real fast. The 2017 Spurs had a 61-21 record.
Yeah, the year after he left. Yeah, I mean they were still loaded. I mean after he left because they had like Kawhi and all these great players, but then like you see that gradual. I don't think they were ever like the last place team in the league again until maybe the last couple of years, but you could definitely see where they started to dip afterwards. But I mean, obviously they did a great job his last few years of kind of knowing he was going to retire and like infusing that team with more defensive talent. But it still wasn't the same.
Yeah, they lost. The 17 is when Zaza Pachulia injured Kawhi Leonard and has had that lingering injury for the entire his career, or since then. Yeah, that's when they got swept in the Western Conference Finals. I was hyped during that time because they were killing it. LaMarcus Aldridge just could not miss a mid-range shot. He was making like 80% of his 2-point mid-range shots. It was crazy. He was just cooking everybody. But
I think if Kawhi stays healthy, that they probably win that.
Maybe, yeah. It definitely was a real shot. They finished second in the league, I think, that year.
That's. I mean, you got to hand it to the Spurs too. Like, what a consistent organization for the most part. Even like, because David Robinson had a similar effect, right? Like, they were trash before he joined, especially defensively, and like then he turned them around, and then they kind of were dipping when he was injury prone those last couple of years, and then Tim Duncan. I mean, but they've that's really a team that you don't say, oh, they're ever, going to be the worst ever. I mean, last couple of years, sure, when they've just kind of blown it up, and then now they have Wemby, and they might get. I don't think he's going there, but maybe Giannis. We'll see. Yeah,
I've heard that Giannis is going, but I don't think he's. I don't know if he's going.
I don't know how that would mesh. I mean, you can't. I mean, Wemby's just not going to want to be like just that guy who plays defense, right? Like, I think. I don't know. I mean, it'd be crazy.
Isn't Dylan Harper on that team now? Didn't he just get drafted and put on there?
I think so. I've actually need to do a draft recap because I just know like the first couple picks, and I haven't really kind of examined that. It's not like the NFL draft where I'm all about it.
Yeah. No, I'm curious to see how that works out. Yeah, Dylan Harper, number 2.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic for I guess that's Ron Harper's son. And then we got VJ Edgecombe for the 76ers. That's just my personal thing. But yeah.
Think Embiid's gonna be healthy next year?
I think we should try and trade him and get some value. We probably should have done it a couple years ago. They just want to keep him, but he's so lazy, man, and he's such a crybaby per se. He just whines.
He does. He throws his teammates under the bus too.
Yep, I think that with Brett Brown being there and them having that losing culture in the beginning to tank for draft picks, I think that really screwed up the mentality of a lot of these guys. I think the biggest two were Embiid and Simmons. Because Simmons essentially just quit playing basketball after he got paid. That's essentially what happened.
That's the way to do it.
He's just hanging around the league so he can make his, $150 million.
Can't believe that. That's so trash.
But yeah, no, I have mental health issues. I can't play basketball. I know he hurt his back, but I don't know the severity of that actual injury. But I have mental health issues because he wouldn't shoot a layup on Trae Young because he was too afraid to go to the free throw line. And so it's just ridiculous, man. Like I don't really get a lot of that, like how it and Embiid I think is in ways similar. It's not to that extreme, but he's just always like they don't want to win. It seems like they're not trying.
Yeah, I mean they have a good roster. Just I mean. I would try to trade Embiid while he's still, young enough, and you can get some haul for him, to just build around like guys like Maxey and whoever else you got. Like I need to look at the roster again, but you could do that. I mean, they have I don't know how much draft capital they have, but I would get rid of him. He's a locker room cancer. You can pencil him in for 20 to 30 games missed every season. It's crazy, but. I mean, get rid of them. We'll see. But who should we maybe debate next, man? Like that's the great question.
Yeah, let me look at some of these ones that Rex came up with. If you give me a moment.
Oh, shit, okay.
Rex just vomited ideas the other day at me.
Nice.
Let's see.
Because we did Shaq Will, we did Bird Magic, Kobe Duncan, LeBron. Well, we could do Mike LeBron.
Yeah, that's
fun.
An easy one.
Yeah, we did that like 30 times.
Wilt Russell, West Robinson, Oscar Robinson, Bob Pettit, Elgin Baylor, John Havlicek, Dr. J, Kuzi versus Stockton, Hayes versus Malone. Dominique versus James Worthy, George Gervin versus Adrian Dantley, Bernard King versus Adrian Dantley, Those are just a few that he vomited out there. Anyone intrigue you?
I mean, I'm trying to like who was the Kuzi versus who? Kuzi versus
Stockton.
Stockton. That could be a fun one, honestly.
I'm down for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Bill's. I mean, I think that didn't we do that one at some point, or somebody did that? I thought that was one of your in one of your tournaments that happened.
I don't remember. I can't look back.
Yeah, I think I remember that happening. It was a good debate too. But you might have actually. I'm not sure, but yeah, that was. But yeah, I mean, if you want to do that one, or if you think of something else between then and there, like next Friday, I'll be at my computer, so I'll do plenty of research on it.
Nice. Kuzi, you want Stockton? I'm guessing.
It doesn't matter to me. I can do Stockton, sure.
Okay. I'll do Kuzi, and then I'll go first next time. But
yes, sir.
All right. Well, it was a fun time. And I'm gonna put the outro video on here.
Yeah.
I like the song. How do you like that song anyway? I think it's pretty intense.
Oh, the outro or the intro?
Yeah, the intro. Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I think we could shorten it up a little bit somehow. It's like 2 minutes long.
Yeah, that's what AOH would always say. Is like your intro is so long. I mean, it's different for now because there's nobody watching this except for one person. But when there's the point of having a long intro is to essentially cue people that your show has started. Like it gives a buffer time for people to start watching the show. Because if you just go cold open, then people are like, oh, what did I miss? And then often they want to go back. So if they are anticipating the show to start, then they get a little bit of a buffer time to come in. And I think 2 minutes isn't so long. And then you get a cool song and a music video, or at least that's what I like to do.
Was that Muhammad Ali talking?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like it. It's a nice way to start our show.
Yeah. All right, man. I guess next week it'll be Kuzi versus Stockton. I have a debate tomorrow on the takes. No, not the takes debates, on Goatcast Hoops, where it'll be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's who I'll be arguing for versus Tim Duncan.
Oh.
So, yeah, so I think that'll be a good one.
Oh, you better win that one.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how they're judging. I forget how he said they're going to judge it. I think
what time is
win.
Goatcast Hoops? What time is that?
He's talking about maybe 4 Eastern.
4 Eastern.
But
so like noon our time? Or
10. Yeah.
10. Okay.
He was asking when I can do it, but he's got to drive his wife out of state or something. So he said he thinks he'd be back by then. I don't know. And then I'll be facing the casual for the first time. I faced from that side of the aisle, if you want to call it. I mean, I wouldn't call it that, but you know, that group of people. I've faced True to King. He said he wanted a rematch, but I haven't had my rematch yet of KD versus Dr. J, which it's not. That's another one that I think is not even close. I think Kareem and Duncan you can say is closer, but I think there's just a lot of. I think it's easy to explain away the lack of all defenses because they didn't exist for some time.
Kareem's an easy win, dude. Like after just from the 70s.
Yeah.
But no, I want to see that, man. Let me know if it's live and like show me, kick me over the actual site name or whatever. But I'll watch that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll text it to you. You got any last words for the people if they ever watch this?
Hey guys, I know that people actually watched the last one that we did because I found it on the. You're saying like more people watched it and they were commenting. Do the same thing, guys. We're gonna bring more of these, and And obviously, we'll probably be incorporating some judges in real time eventually, which will be more interesting. And yeah, we'll keep doing these and to try to give you guys research content and the best debates possible.
Absolutely. We got to come up with a catchphrase too. Welcome to Lights Out, and then that's it.
I'll think about that because I'll think about that on my 8-hour flight. It's fun.
Yeah. I mean, Lights Out kind of is, it was supposed to be about doing it at nighttime, but now we're not doing it at nighttime. So it kind of, the whole Lights Out, I guess it's like a knockouts, I think.
Yeah, or we're debating so well. It's Lights Out debate, something like that.
Yeah. It's like somebody got crushed.
Yeah.
But yeah, vote on who you thought won. As Travis was saying, thank you for the people that do watch this all the way through 55 minutes. And Michael Jordan fans are the best.
Yeah.
This man has never knocked nobody out cold. He's a bully. He's slow. He has no skill, no footwork. He's awkward. And I have been giving him a name. Because he fights. When he's fighting, if you ever watch him in the ring, he drags like that after his opponent. And how's the mummy gonna catch me?
And all I had to do was to go out and beat for a man who had no skill, no class. Seriously, the man had no skill. I don't know why the world is so foolish to believe in him and think that I wasn't going to win.